takes farmers and food businesses, right? We want to be part of that conversation as well. And we want to make sure that we continue to sort of bridge the production that we have in the state, the production that we have in this community, and connecting that into our food system. When I read the summary pages of the report, the word connection was there multiple times, not by accident, right? It's really making sure that we get out of the silos that we speak of and work in, and bring that across the entire sector. But that takes a lot of leadership, and I am proud of this community. I'm proud of what the governor and team have done at the state level to recognize how we as a state sort of address the issues of hunger. I'm proud of the work that we've done on LFPA and SNAP and the TASK program and the nutrition aspects. I feel like there's another frontier of connecting into both the work that we do in the department with that of the Department of Health, and the Department of Economic Development, right, and the Department of Human Services. At the end of the day, I mean, to me, that's where the real work is done. We can get things done in our own respective departments. We can get the appropriations work. But as we saw last week in the communities, the question is, how do you build the capacity of that community to respond to the needs of that community? That's not simply one agency's worry. It's not one department's concern. It's not a single program that does that. It's the connectedness across each of the sectors. And again, to put the point to it, you're the only one that we've seen that makes this connection between the farm and the community in the land aspects. So thank you for doing that. But we're proud of the work that's being done. There's a lot more to do. And I'll just sort of end by saying that we in the department have really looked hard at this issue around food security, food hubs, food access. And we recognize that there's a lot of good work being done. But in these times of really challenging moments where we look at the participation rates in programs and worry a lot about how do we make sure that folks have access to food, how do we make sure that our farms are supported, how do we make sure that those in our communities see those connections. And it's not obvious as it should be, right? I think about, of course, food is medicine, right? I like to say that food is preventive medicine. And I think one of our farmers, right, helped to testify a couple of weeks ago at a press conference. And I stood there, was really impressed that the most impactful speakers, no disrespect to anybody who was speaking, but the real power was in the farmer's voice. And I realized that that's the story. It's the preventive medicine. It's the things we do on the front side that keep us out of the healthcare system, right? It puts us on the preventive side. That's not novel, but in terms of the work that we do and how we message, I think that's part of the story, is pulling this conversation back to be both a community conversation, a health conversation, a food conversation, and a farm conversation. So thank you for leading. Congratulations to each of you for the report and the work that's done, and the work that is to come. There's a lot of work in this report, right? The real work is now, how do we bring this to life? But knowing what's there, the work and the partners that are here, have great confidence that that can be done. So thank you for being here, and thanks for being part of the process. I look forward to the Lehigh Valley's work in this space. So thank you.
Just going to build on one point he said there. We can teach people what to eat, but if you don't have access to the good food, it doesn't really help. So the more we can change our environment so that healthy choices are easy choices, choices that we don't need to think about so hard, the better things are going to be for everyone involved. So now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing a very good friend of mine and colleague, Megan McBride. This is her work here. A lot of us helped, but Yeah, I can't say enough about Megan. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read what's on here. Oh, get my glasses. Get old now. Megan is the director of Buy Fresh, Buy Local, Greater Lehigh Valley, a program of the Nurture Nature Center. With more than 20 years of experience in community development and local food systems, Megan served as Easton Market District Director for the Greater Easton Development Partnership, where she grew the Easton's Farmers Market into one of Pennsylvania's leading farmers markets and played a key role in developing the Easton Public Market and Highmark Farm Stand. And I want to, that's like not enough of a description of what she did, right? Because when I grew up here in Easton, and during our darkest days, the Easton Farmers Market had one vendor left. Now, we just celebrated our 274th birthday 2 weeks ago of the farmers market. If you do the math, we had a farmers market for over 20 years while we were still a British colony. And through the revolution, or not the revolution, but the, yeah, I guess it was the revolution, right? Yeah. Through that, we maintained this farmers market. And it continues to this day. And Megan built that from one vendor, begging him to stay, to now we have 70 vendors in a waiting list. It's probably, So most recently, she authored the Farm to Community Lehigh Valley Food Systems, Lehigh Valley Food System, and completed the Lehigh Valley Food Feasibility Study funded through a NESDA Foundation Business Builder Grant. She also manages a Two Rivers Health and Wellness Foundation funded FMNP incentive program at the Easton and Bethlehem Farmers Market and supports the Lehigh Valley's 15 Farmers Market. Megan serves on the Blue Zones Project, Lehigh Valley Steering Committee, and the advisory committees for the Lehigh Valley Food Policy Council and the Lehigh Valley Food Hub Initiative. So without further ado, I bring you Megan.
Thank you for that warm welcome. I'm losing my voice a little bit from talking to so many wonderful people tonight, but super excited to be here and with so many people that I've worked alongside throughout the years, but also so many new people, and I think that that's really the exciting part for me. Before I get started, I'm going to ask Rachel Bogan-Carr to come up. Rachel is the Executive Director of the Nurture Nature Center. And without Rachel and the Nurture Nature Center, there would be no Buy Fresh, Buy Local. So I'd just like her to tell you a little bit about Nurture Nature Center and what we do there.
It is an honor to be here, and I should be following Megan because she's the star of the show. But I do want to say thank you for all of the help that everyone has put into this report. Nurture Nature Center is the nonprofit that is the backbone of Buy Fresh, Buy Local. Buy Fresh, Buy Local is one of our flagship programs of which we're most proud, and started around the same time that we did. And if those of you are familiar with Nurture Nature know, we actually started in response to flooding in the Delaware River Basin in 2004, 5, and 6. And the question that was posed to me as a much younger woman back then was, what do we do about flooding? Well, the first question was, why is the Delaware River flooding so frequently? And number two, what do we do to help communities to prepare? And that question involves much more than thinking about flooding. And so our mission has evolved to really focus on deepening environmental engagement among our communities, strengthening and hopefully fostering a culture of care for the environment. And we can't do that without thinking about our land use. As the Secretary mentioned, weather, a large part of our work is about weather, and I just came back from a conference in DC today of the American Meteorological Society, where a congressman from Illinois, the only meteorologist to be elected a congressman, by the way, Eric Sorensen, was talking about his national weather safety bill, and he said some of the biggest advocates for it are the growers. And so he said that the farmers out in Illinois understood climate and weather hazards better than anyone, and were able to create cross-partisan support for this bill that otherwise might have looked like not a cross-partisan support bill. And I was happy to see that the two pieces of our work that we care so much about at Nurture Nature were coming together also on the national stage and being done exceptionally well out here. So if you haven't been to Nurture Nature Center, you're going to come next year. We're host right now. I have to invite you into our house, but I can't right now. We're building an incredible Earth and Sky Dome immersive theater that's going to be able to show astronomy programs and Earth programs. It'll be a bigger venue for us where we'll do our science fair and my Fresh by Local programming, and so we welcome you to join us then. And for now, I'm getting you back to the start. So thank you so much.
So just quickly, a little bit about Buy Fresh by Local and who we are and what we do. We are the local chapter for the national brand Buy Fresh by Local, and started out working with about 3 counties, Northampton, Lehigh, and Berks. And now, because of our food shed and how it's grown and how interconnected it is, I work at least with about 9 counties, so including across the river in New Jersey and Warren County and Hunterdon counties. And that just came about naturally, really, because of our food shed, and that's a good thing. We work on educating folks about eating locally. We do research, hence tonight's presentation. But what we're most concerned about is advocating for our farmers and making sure that our farmers have the markets that they need to remain viable. So that has really become my goal since coming on board with Buy Fresh by Local. And when I started this job 2 years ago, after leaving my work in Easton, my predecessor, Madeline Squarcia, said to me, yeah, there's something on the agenda for you to get done. It's this update of the food economy report. And Rachel mentioned it as well, the update. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that shouldn't be bad, update some statistics and do some research and, bring the ag census updates in there. And when I started actually digging in, I realized that it was a lot more than an update. When my good friend Lynn Pryor did this report 13 years ago, it was really groundbreaking in the Lehigh Valley. And it was used as a resource for many food systems professionals, professors, government leaders. It was made part of the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission's One Lehigh Valley report. So it was a really important piece. So I felt the weight of that for sure. But I think what became so daunting, and I'm looking at my project manager, Lisa Rubeck, when I say this, is that when we started realizing how interconnected all these topics around food and agriculture are, and how far-reaching they are, we wanted to make sure that we did this right. And that was so important to me. And to do that right required reaching out to many of you in this room who are experts, whether it's in climate or science or farming or economics. We needed the experts. We needed your voices in the room. And like with so many situations with anything relating to food or farming, everyone was so willing. So we created our advisory council, and we got to work figuring out what needed to go into this report. And the challenge really was a positive thing in many ways, is that so much had happened in that past 13 years in the Lehigh Valley. So much because of all of you, just like Secretary Redding said. When we think back, there were so many programs that weren't in place, so many food access programs. Now we have SNAP incentives that are statewide, which is amazing. We have Rodale and PASA here doing such good work in the Lehigh Valley. Post-COVID, we have, CSAs have really exploded. We have 15 farmers markets in the Lehigh Valley, which is huge. And we're seeing a huge interest, not just among farmers, but a general understanding with the general public around regenerative agriculture and soil health and what that means for our food. So a lot changed in that realm. And something else changed really cool, which is now 35% of our growers are women, so. So that's more than double since 2007. And another thing that happened during this time was the local food purchasing assistance program, and we'll talk more about that now. But that program, probably more than anything else, showed us something really important, something loud and clear, that building the farm economy and feeding people, addressing food insecurity, can be one and the same and done successfully. And for so many years, these things have been siloed. And that program just blew it out of the water. Funding has been cut for that program. We are hoping to bring that back on a Lehigh Valley style way in our regional program, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, things have changed in the Lehigh Valley in terms of population and land pressure, land prices. Poverty levels have grown. People are not getting enough food. And one of the things, though, that stayed completely the same, almost completely the same during these 13 years is our missing middle. And by that, I mean our lack of aggregation, our lack of distribution around food, our lack of processing around food. The only thing that grew here is meat processing in the Lehigh Valley. And shout out to Lehigh Valley Meats, which is a fantastic USDA meat processing facility right up the road in Belfast. But everything else stayed the same. I'm getting way ahead of myself in my thing here. But so that is all part of the story that we really needed to tell. And the food report is intended to be a blueprint for that. So, you know, realizing the magnitude of doing all this, just it was a lot. And we had veteran food system professionals like Diane Matthews-Garinger from Lehigh County Farmland Preservation, who's since retired. And then we had newbies like Julie Wright, who is a student at Lehigh University, graduate student, who was fantastic. And it was just all those voices and all those farmers that really, that brought the report together. And I don't want this report to be something that's, you know, sitting on a bookshelf somewhere or something someone never opens on their computer. And part of the reason why we mailed it out to so many people was because farming and food is about authenticity, right? It's about smelling the peach, tasting the peach. And in this case, it's about picking up this report and really seeing what we can do as a community. I'm not a farmer. I have a garden. I am not a climate scientist. I am definitely not an economic whiz, as Chris Rubeck from Lafayette College will attest to in writing this report. But what I am is someone who ran a small business for 14 years and worked in food systems for 20 years and community development. And I saw firsthand during that time how food has the power to transform a community. It really does. From workforce development, to feeding people, to bringing people together. I saw that happen in Easton, and it's not gonna cry. It's, you know, it's one of the things that I'm most proud of. But it was a grassroots collaboration. You know, I thank Todd for his kind words about me, but I didn't do it. I just brought the people together, and we all did it. And that's why I'm so excited to see all of you here tonight, including Bob Freeman, who just came in from the Capitol. And so many of you that are here representing so many facets of our food system. A couple of months ago, I was asked to speak by Stephanie Shirk, who's here somewhere with the PDA Business Development Center at PETA, which is not PETA as in the animal rights group, but PDA, Pennsylvania Economic Development Association. And Stephanie told me that they had never approached the Ag Department before about speaking at an economic development conference. So this was a really exciting opportunity, and I was grateful to be there, but how telling that in the state of Pennsylvania, agriculture was never thought of to be included in an economic development conference. So here we are, and I think that the Lehigh Valley is ready to be this thriving, interconnected food system between our government leaders, our amazing community organizations that are here, and our farmers and our community members. And I'm just gonna say before I go through the slides here, is it's rare that a project has the power to address so many things, from environment to our health, and not just the food we eat, but how it's grown affects our health here in the Lehigh Valley, food insecurity and food waste, the economy, and creating jobs. So for anybody that's interested in investing out there, think of this as a really sure thing, because you are checking off a lot of boxes by supporting anything around food systems. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and get started here. I want to thank Northampton County for helping to fund this project, as well as the USDA and Lafayette College, who printed our booklets for us, which was amazing. So the good news is, as the Secretary said, we have productive farms. We are growing despite shrinking land sizes and less land available. We're selling more produce. Our farmers are thriving in many ways, but not enough. We have passionate organizations. We have Rodale, and we have Kellyn, and we have PASA, and we have all this agricultural knowledge. So what's missing? We're operating in pieces in many ways. So many of us are doing this amazing work out there, but we're not completely interconnected in what we're doing. And we need to connect all this amazing stuff that's already here. We're doing a great job with preserving farmland, you know, some of the best in the state. But preserving farms, or preserving farmland alone doesn't preserve farming. And this is a conversation that I have with people over and over again when we're out tabling in the community. And everybody wants to see a beautiful farm. Everybody wants to drive by it and know that it's there, right? But when you ask them what farms do they buy from, what farms do they support, what farmers markets do they go to, I'm met with blank stares many times, and they don't equate these two things. They don't understand, in order to keep our farms in farming, that we have to actually support our growers. So beyond farmland preservation, I'm just going to throw out a couple things here for you to think about. When we're preserving farmland, you know, thinking about prioritizing projects that actually feed people. We have 56% of our farmland in the Lehigh Valley is corn and soy, commodity crops, and we need to feed our region. And I think that we're seeing that more and more, unfortunately, because a lot of the crises that we're facing. We also have to look at building preservation into climate resilience planning. Treating farmland as environmental infrastructure by protecting that land and the stormwater retention, the soil health, the carbon sequestration, reducing pollution impacts. In 2025, we received an F rating from the American Lung Association for the Lehigh Valley. We are the 5th highest in the nation as far as pollution particulates. And farming the right way can address so much of that. I had the opportunity a few nights ago to be at Harvest Home Meats up in Bangor, and it was golden hour, and I was in the middle of 80 cattle, which was kind of terrifying, but also took my shoes off for the ride home. But this place, if you ever have an opportunity, it is now part of the Environmental Center. And what Farmer Rich DeFebo did there, he leases his land from the Bangor School District, and it's about 66 acres. And he took land that was thick brush that deer couldn't even chomp their way through, and he mowed that down. He had about 4 inches of wood chips there. The NRCS came in and said, there's no way that you're gonna graze cattle on this land. And he was like, watch me, the cattle will bring back the grass. The cattle will bring back the native plants. And it was absolutely beautiful. There was butterflies everywhere. There was, you know, native plants. There was shade trees. There's a trail around it that you can walk. But my point is that it's not just about the food that the farmers sell, it's about what it does for us as a community. So when you're thinking about that warehouse versus thinking about Rich's land up there in Bangor, It means a lot. So, and another thing too is I've been reading a lot about agri-hoods, where communities are requiring agricultural components for any kind of new development. And that could just be something as simple as native plantings, but it could also be an actual garden or small agricultural operation as part of a development. So these are things that we as community members can advocate for and build into our policies and our zoning. Strengthening agricultural security areas and right to farm. So many of our farmers have houses sprouting up all around them. I talked to a farmer the other night from Hellertown he relies on his pond for irrigation for his animals, and the water supply was cut off because of what happened in a neighboring development. And he's been trying to get somewhere with the officials in Hellertown and has not been able to. And so we're trying to help him, but we all need to recognize our farmers as essential. And we're super lucky here in the Lehigh Valley to have the farmer training that we have through the seed farm and through PASA and through Rodale. And we're putting out some amazing, enthusiastic farmers. And young people are actually excited about farming again, because it's not just about inputs and chemicals and getting a subsidy. It's because they're interested in it from a land perspective. They're interested in how it can help to heal our communities. And that's a wonderful thing. But the thing that's maybe not so wonderful is that once they come out of these training programs, the land prices in the Lehigh Valley are often prohibitive. So we had a really interesting conversation a little bit earlier with Tara Zarinsky, who is our county executive, and she was asking, why don't we have a seed farm in Northampton County? So absolutely, I would love to have the seed farm, which is an incubator farm there. I'm ready. And I'm putting you on the spot, I know. But she mentioned that there's 400 some acres at Gracedale, which is the county nursing home facility. And not only would it be an amazing spot for an incubator farm, but it would also be amazing for transitional land for farmers when they come out of these training programs to be able to purchase land at an affordable price. So if there could be land that is preserved in the Lehigh Valley, whether it's lands that hospital networks own or corporations, chunks of that land could be put into farmland preservation and earmarked for new and beginning farmers, like, boom, like, how cool is that? Because you see these prices here on the slide. I mean, it's expensive everywhere, but Lehigh Valley is absolutely bonkers. The secretary talked a lot about climate, and flooding is the major natural hazard here in the state of Pennsylvania and in the Lehigh Valley. It is something that our farmers are dealing with: more extreme temperatures, rainfall, invasive pests. We all know what happened to the orchards this past spring. And again, these are things that we can address by all getting behind farming. And diversifying our farm production. We have a lot of monocrops here in the Lehigh Valley, as I said, but there are opportunities for farmers to transition over to organic. And when you look at those numbers for the sales growth for organic, just in Pennsylvania, 789% increase, amazing. And there's opportunities around transitioning to growing grain for consumers. We have Tina Bailey here tonight from Red Cat Farm, who is one of my most absolute favorite people in the world. And if you have never had any of Tina's flour or pancake mix or wheat berries, you need to get it, because she is incredible and her product is incredible. And I've been working with Marksboro Mills in New Jersey, across the river, River Valley Community Grains. And here's an opportunity, newsflash, big opportunity for farmers if we can all get behind it. So they are growing grains, aggregating grains from farmers throughout New Jersey to supply to bakeries, restaurants, chefs, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area. they can only meet 30% of that need right now. There are so many chefs and restaurants and even consumers and personal bakers that are seeing the value of grain. So I don't want to get into a whole gluten conversation. I could, because it's not the gluten, it's the processing. But 30%, so what they've been doing is they've been buying in grain from small valley mills in Halifax, Pennsylvania, to be able to supplement, to have enough to be able to mill there to supply these bakers, etc. So there are opportunities out there. And excuse me for the AI graphic, it's the only one. But it served the purpose. You know, we have these three amazing cities in the Lehigh Valley. We're surrounded by farmland, but guess what? None of this stuff is getting from these farms to these schools, these institutions, these amazing hospital systems that we have here. They're all buying from big distributors from outside the area. And I don't blame them. It's not their fault. Because again, it goes back to this missing middle. We don't have the aggregation, the processing, the distribution. We aren't able to supply them with the food in the format that they needed. You know, these schools don't have full service kitchens anymore. They need sweet potatoes that are chopped and frozen and bagged. The same goes with, you know, the Lehigh Valley has a booming pet food industry, in case you didn't know, with Fresh Pet and Spot and Tango. And I reached out to Fresh Pet because they tout themselves as, you know, farm to table for dogs. And I was curious who they're buying from locally. And they said they support local farmers. Well, they don't support any hyper-local farmers within the region. And the reason is because they can't be supplied with things that are already cut, chopped, canned, frozen, however they need it. And understandable. And restaurants and school systems, they don't have the ability to be able to deal with 20 different farmers and having all those relationships. Maybe smaller restaurants, yes. So it's really incumbent upon us to fix this missing middle. And when I read Team Pennsylvania's 2025 Agricultural Economic Report, I was so struck by the leakage that's going on in the state of how many things that we are buying in as a state that we grow right here. Salad greens being one of them, frozen vegetables, peppers, things that we can grow here. And with the right support and season extension growing, we can support our farmers and provide these markets for them so that they can sell to schools and institutions. But the Food Hub is an integral part of this. It's an integral part of interconnecting all of this. And this is just like, you know, it's very glaring. If you can see it, I don't know. You know, where we were in 2013 as far as co-packers and processors and food hubs, and where we are now, we're in the same place. And I always look at this freezing facilities on here, and we all know Air Products is one of our major corporations here in the Lehigh Valley, and they basically invented IQF freezing technology. So how amazing of a public-private partnership would that be to get them on board with flash freezing facility for our farmers. And the other huge thing about this is the waste. So much of our farmers' food ends up being composted. You don't even want to know the numbers. And it doesn't have to be if we have a way to be able to freeze it, if we have a way to be able to can it, and in an economical way. So it is really about the interconnection of all of these things. And I truly believe that a food hub can be that connector. And at the same time, you know, we talk about recognizing farming as being viable from an economic standpoint. Right now, most of the food hubs in the United States are either subsidized with grants or other philanthropic endeavors. And I don't want that to be the case, because I don't know how we can say that farming is economically viable if we can't support a food hub on its own. So that is why I am so focused on the processing end of things. Through processing, we can aggregate from multiple farmers. We all know that we don't necessarily have the capacity right now as a farming society to be able to supply all these institutions that we have here in the valley. But if we are aggregating product from multiple farms, we're creating a marinara sauce, we're creating a soup base, we're creating heat and eat meals for schools. That product can be coming from multiple farms, and you're providing them with that market. And it just kind of blows my mind that the Valley is very focused on manufacturing, and we welcome the Eli Lillies and the Bee Brawns, and all of that is great. But this is another huge opportunity, and with the right investors, we can make this happen, and we can make it be viable, and we can make it be something that supports everything in this list here. And the LFPA program proved that probably more than anything. It showed that we can do coordinated procurement here in the Lehigh Valley, and it got our farmers wholesale ready. There's a lot more readiness to do, of course. There's a lot more crop planning and looking at group gap certification, and so that we can help farmers with providing certifications and regulations that they aren't able to afford on their own. I have a farmer that I work with currently who lost his Weiss account and his Wegmans account because they upgraded their standards, and you now have to deliver in a refrigerated truck. So he was selling tremendous amount of greens to them, and just gone overnight. He can't afford to have the truck, and that was the end of that. So one of the super important things in all of this is the Food Policy Council. So I want to thank Blue Zones for bringing this to the forefront, and I'm thankful that this was bubbled up to the top of the heap here in the Lehigh Valley as something important to all three cities. And Allison's going to talk a little bit more about this. But right now it really is, it's from action to planning. So next step is doing community forums like this, because there's a huge learning curve out there. We all get it for the most part here, but out there in the general community, they don't. So this message needs to get far and wide. Establishing the Food Policy Council. We're working on another feasibility study thanks to Northampton County and the Grow Norco grant. Spending a lot of time with our farmers, working on that readiness and building relationships there, because that is so important. Because in the end, the farmers need to trust that they're going to get a fair price through the food hub and that we have their backs. And working with existing infrastructure. We've had some really great meetings with the Pennsylvania Potato Growers Co-op, so we're excited about working with them. We have farmers that have been doing this kind of aggregation and processing for years, like Brian Bruno from Apple Ridge Farm, who does just amazing stuff with his fermented products, where he's supporting multiple farmers buying their cabbage, making sauerkraut, and then those same farmers can buy that product back from him at a reduced price. And our farmers are doing a lot of this work on their own. So many of them are selling to each other, through each other's farm stands. There's a lot of direct wholesale going on, but we can make this bigger. We can make this opportunity bigger and make farming sit where it really deserves to sit here in the Lehigh Valley. So a lot of work to be done, as the secretary alluded to, but I really think that all of you can help us advance this vision, and I do feel that it's a collective vision. So thank you, and I'm going to...
Yeah, I was on the team that helped write this report, and there was a lot of work and coordination. It was really great. So our last speaker tonight is another good friend and colleague, Allison Zapp. And before I bring her up here, so recently the USDA released a local food systems partnership grant, and if you've ever written a large federal grant, you know they are not meant to be fun. Lots of requirements, very short deadlines. And but we said, let's do this. So Megan, Allison, and I worked together. We realized we had very different strengths, and so we leveraged each of our strengths and we went at it. And the process is not meant to be fun, but we had a blast. So I know that's kind of weird, but we were texting around the clock, we all did our part, and we were able to apply for the maximum amount of funding, which is $1.25 million. So we will find out on September 30th whether we are awarded that, and that'll be $1.25 million going towards the Food Hub and the Food Policy Council. So, yeah, keep the So, let me bring up Allison. Like Megan, I've known Allison for 15 years. Turns out we both got into food systems work at the same time. So, Allison has spent the last 15 years advancing food systems in the Lehigh Valley through leadership roles with Buy Fresh, Buy Local of the Greater Lehigh Valley, the Bath Farmers Market, Second Harvest Food Bank, and the Easton Area Neighborhood Center. Her work has included food systems research, launching the region's first SNAP incentive program, expanding local food access, strengthening food bank operations, overseeing implementation of the local food purchasing system program, and supporting agricultural initiatives, including the Seed Farm and the Easton Urban Farm. So yeah, quite a resume there. Former chair of the Lehigh Valley Food Policy Council, Allison has also served on the Penn State Extension Advisory Council for Northampton County, the Blue Zone Steering Committee, and the current Food Policy Council Advisory Committee. So let me bring up my good friend and colleague, Allison Zapp.
Thanks, Don. I wrote this down so I didn't ramble because I'm talking about food systems and that tends to happen. So this is really incredible to be standing up here at the release of this report. There is literally no one in the Lehigh Valley who is more excited about reading this report than me. I want to step back a little bit in time here to when the first local food economy report was released. That was back in 2013. I had just moved back to the Lehigh Valley from New Mexico to begin what I hope would be my career in food systems. It worked out okay. It was a really exciting time in the Lehigh Valley with tons of momentum coming off the Envision Lehigh Valley process, LV process. And the report gave us a roadmap and a starting point to work toward creating a more accessible, visible, just, and sustainable food system. One of the recommendations of that report was to create a Lehigh Valley Food Policy Council. It said this council would be a critical step in developing a comprehensive and coordinated approach to addressing the issues of fresh food access and the local food system in the Lehigh Valley. And that first council was really ambitious. It was structured as 9 working groups, each focused on a different sector of the food system, and those 9 groups fell under one of 2 convening arms, food access and food economy. The early years of the council saw successes in summer meals programs, food recovery efforts, local food aggregation planning, and up until the pandemic, some work exploring value-added processing. And I'd like to take a moment here to recognize the work that everybody contributed to that first Food Policy Council. It was a lot. We accomplished a lot. And I'd especially like to give a shout out to Sue Landon, who was the coordinator for the duration of the council. But as we all know, 2019 marked the beginning of the pandemic, and as priorities shifted across all sectors to deal with this crisis, the council began to fracture. The aftermath of the pandemic also saw the Great American Job Reshuffle, which made it even more difficult for the council to sustain under so much rapid change. Eventually, the steering committee broke apart, and the Food Access Working Group was all that remained. One of the last actions of the Food Policy Council was to contribute funding to the local food economy report. And despite the hardships of those years, the pandemic allowed us an opportunity for something great. And I don't just mean an opportunity for us introverts to live our best lives. It gave Americans everywhere a chance to interact with their local food systems like they never had before. It built trust and relationships between local residents and their farmers, and it took passionate food systems advocates into new sectors. And it gave us a chance to reset. Post-pandemic, one of the most fascinating pieces of legislation was passed to shore up local and regional food systems. And of course, I'm talking about the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program. which allowed the Lehigh Valley to invest more than $2 million into our local food system via the Charitable Food Network. This important program, as Megan had mentioned, had benefits that extended far beyond the literal cash investment. It made foods incredibly accessible to low-income communities, and it broke long-standing silos between charitable food systems and the local food system. And just as importantly, it allowed us to see what our food system was capable of if we intentionally invested in it. As food policy conversations during this time shifted to dining room tables and late-night texts, we saw tremendous opportunities before us, and we also saw the massive gap left by the dissolution of the council. When Blue Zones arrived on the scene, the public offered a clear mandate to that team, as Todd has already mentioned. The Lehigh Valley wanted to build infrastructure around food systems, both in a physical sense with the creation of some type of food hub, and a more intangible sense with the creation of a new food policy council. And that brings us to the present. The first local food economy report helped us answer a really important question. What does our regional food system look like? Over the last decade, we have spent countless hours building on that understanding. We've built relationships, we've launched programs, we supported farmers, expanded markets, we've done tons of research, and we've learned from one another. And now, thanks to the work represented in this new report, we have an even richer understanding of our regional food system than we did more than a decade ago. What's been remarkable is that no matter where we've looked over the last several years, we've kept arriving at the same conclusion. Whether through this report, the Blue Zones process, our experience with LFPA, or the work we've done exploring farm-to-institution opportunities, the message has been consistent. The Lehigh Valley does not lack good organizations or good ideas. It needs stronger regional coordination. And so I don't think the most important question today is, what does our food system look like? I think the question is now, we understand this better, how do we build it together? Because if you look around the Lehigh Valley today, it's clear something is happening. Healthcare systems are embracing food as medicine. Institutions are taking a really active role in creating new wholesale market opportunities. Farmers are looking for stronger regional markets. None of these movements started together, but now they're moving in the same direction. And that's not a coincidence. That is a sign that our region is ready for a new level of coordination. As Todd mentioned, and Megan, we are currently working to establish that coordination infrastructure through a re-envisioned food policy council. Over the last year, food system leaders have been working with Blue Zones to redesign this council. Together, we've explored different governance models and reimagined how it can best serve the region today. Currently, we're working, including even today, we're working to establish the council's governance, form the initial steering committee, and incorporate it as an independent 501c3, so it has the organizational foundation to support this work for the long term. As we've been redesigning the council, we're also spending a lot of time reflecting on what worked well and where we have opportunities to grow. We are approaching this differently by recognizing that long-term coordination requires dedicated staff capacity and sustainable funding. One of the lessons from the original council is that while a part-time coordinator and committed volunteers accomplish an incredible amount, sustaining regional coordination over the long term requires greater organizational capacity. If we believe this work is essential, we have to invest in the people and the resources needed to support it. Another lesson we've learned is that even with the best intentions, the way we organize ourselves shapes the way. The previous council was organized around sectors of the food system, and that made sense at the time because we were trying to understand each part of this incredibly complex system. But over time, it became clear that many of the opportunities in front of us didn't fit neatly within those sectors. They existed at the intersections between agriculture and health, between economic development and nutrition, between education, planning, conservation, and community development. Those intersections are where some of our greatest opportunities for innovation emerge. The Food Policy Council isn't simply a place for organizations to collaborate, It's designed to intentionally create those intersections, to create the conditions where new ideas, new partnerships, and new solutions emerge from the intersection of different perspectives. The Lehigh Valley, if you live here, you know, already has incredible examples of organizations working together. The challenge is not encouraging collaboration. It's building a durable structure that allows those interactions to happen consistently over time, rather than depending on one single project, grant, or relationship. This council will be that coordination infrastructure that will help the rest of us work together more effectively. It doesn't replace the work of farmers, nonprofits, schools, healthcare systems, businesses, or local governments. It creates a space where those organizations can share information, align priorities, coordinate action, and build on one another's strengths. Just as we're connecting organizations across the Lehigh Valley, we'll also connect our region to broader statewide Food Policy Council networks that allow us to bring the Lehigh Valley's perspective into statewide conversations and bring new ideas, partnerships, and opportunities back home. If we're successful, the Food Policy Council won't simply be another meeting on people's calendars. It will become part of the civic infrastructure of this region. Our goal isn't just to build a Food Policy Council. Our goal is to build a region that is better at solving food system challenges because the Food Policy Council exists. That kind of institution does not happen by accident. It does require tons of investment. It requires financial investment, time, leadership, ideas, and a shared commitment to showing up. I have had the privilege of watching our regional food system evolve over this last decade plus. The work represented in this report gives us a remarkable foundation. The work of the Food Policy Council will be to turn that knowledge into action, strengthen the connections that already exist, and ensure that the momentum we've built continues for years to come. And I'm so excited to see that happen.
Thank you, Allison, so much. All right, so we're not going to have any time for questions and answers, and that's okay. Before I close things up, I just want to, if you open up towards the front of the food economy report, the advisory board for this consisted of, I didn't get a chance to count, I mean, it had to be 15, 20 people. There were several of us who were guest authors, a ton of people who were contributors. I mean, this is a who's who of Lehigh Valley Food Systems people. So let's just give all of those who contributed to this report a big round of applause. Of course, I want to thank the Kellyn Foundation, the L'Entrissant Event Center here. I mean, that spread, how about that spread of food we had? Megan got some wine, but I also got to go around yesterday and buy all kinds of wines, like at the liquor store, at a couple of wineries, picking out different wines. So, I don't know, we had like 20, 30 varieties of Pennsylvania wines. I mean, agriculture in this state, I'm so glad that you had that focus on economic development, because everybody eats. No matter how the economy's going, we all have to eat. Someone has to grow the food, someone has to prepare the food, someone has to consume the food. So glad that they had that at the forefront. And other than that, just what a great day. Beautiful conversations, beautiful food, beautiful wine, beautiful weather today. Let's get the weather at hand, for God's sake. Anyway, thank you for coming out. Grab some more food on your way out, and say hi to your neighbors and friends, and we'll see you around next time soon. Sorry about that, you do not have to leave.